Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to be taking a look at LMGs in Planetside 2. I've picked one LMG for each faction that I think best represents a weapon that can be good in just about any combat situation. Picking the top 3 guns was not an easy decision, and there's a lot of highly recommended guns for each faction, many of which I found did certain things extremely well, perhaps the best, but they did other things really poorly. So I tried to pick something that was very versatile. My playstyle is versatile. I like to be able to play in close quarters and switch to long range if I need to. And in Planetside you can't pick up weapons on the ground, so you really have to have a gun that can pretty much deal with all situations. Starting off here, we have the Pulsar LSW for the Vanu Sovereignty. Now the Orion was sort of the runner-up gun. A lot of people like that gun. It does massive damage in close quarters. It can really handle itself in close quarters. But again, the Pulsar LSW is pretty damn good in close quarters, and it can handle itself at medium and long range very effectively. It has a maximum damage of 143, which starts a drop off at 10 meters all the way down to 112 damage all the way out at 115 meters. The Vanu characteristically do less damage at extreme long ranges, but they make up for this with the lack of bullet drop on their weapons, so it makes it easier for you to hit upper chest or even headshots at long range. It has a very high rate of fire, clocking in at 698 rounds per minute. Some of the fastest firing machine guns fire at 750 rounds per minute, so this one's definitely coming in at the top of the charts for rate of fire. Its recoil is pretty low, with a 0.3 pull up and to the right. If you look at most LMGs out there, they are much more drastic than this. So this has some of the most easy to manage recoil I've experienced out of any LMG. Now this weapon has 75 rounds in a magazine, and it has the fastest reload time in the game for a weapon with that many bullets in one single mag. 3.2 seconds for the short reload, that's if you have some bullets left in your magazine, and 4 seconds for the long reload, being you've spent all your ammunition. Its first shot recoil multiplier seems a bit on the high side at 2.75. However, you have to remember that the first shot recoil multiplier is multiplying the overall recoil, which is quite low. So in actuality, the initial kick is probably less than most LMGs out there. It has a relatively average aiming down sight bloom, initial bloom of 0.1, and the hipfire accuracy is 2.5, which is actually on the low side for LMGs, so you can hipfire this thing in close quarters in a pinch. Now the Pulsar isn't necessarily the best at everything. The Orion, I think, is probably one of the best Vanu LMGs for close quarter engagements, and the Flare and Ursa offer some interesting options for long range encounters, but ultimately the Pulsar handles close quarters, medium range, and long range incredibly well. And you'd be hard pressed to find any other LMG in the game that can transition between all these distances so efficiently. Now let's move on to the TR weapons. For this one, I've picked the TMG-50. Now picking the TMG-50 over other weapons such as the MSWR or the T9 Carve, which are both excellent LMGs, was a difficult decision. This was not a clear-cut scenario. The TR made this decision more difficult than any of the other factions. Ultimately, it was the effectiveness at range that really had me go for the TMG-50. The gun can still handle itself in close quarters, perhaps not as well as the other two guns I just mentioned, but that medium and long range performance is what really sold me on this weapon. Now taking a look at the stats here, you'll notice that it does 167 damage maximum and 143 minimum. This is different than all other TR LMGs, which do 143 maximum and 125 minimum. This gun actually looks a lot more like an NC LMG than it does a TR LMG. It has one of the slowest rate of fires of any of the TR LMGs, and it has a recoil which at first glance looks like it could be pretty high, clocking in at 0.45 up and to the left and right. This means the gun's going to wobble left and right as it pulls up. In actuality, the damage that this gun dishes out and the slow rate of fire really help compensate for the sort of shaky recoil of this weapon. You can pretty much down people at long range in a few short bursts. Now if you watch this clip coming up here in a second, watch how many guys I take down at range in such a short period of time. And pay attention that I'm still using just one 75 round magazine that this weapon has. We see people lining up there. Take a shot at the guy repairing. Take a shot at the guy behind him. That's 2. There's 3 guys up on that platform. 1 down, 2 down, and the 3rd down. That's all one magazine. 5 kills in an extremely short period of time. The weapon has about a second longer reload than the Pulsar LSW, clocking in at 4.2 seconds for the short reload and 5 seconds for the long reload. Its ADS spread is 0.03. Now the Pulsar LSW had a 0.1 initial spread. This means that this gun's going to be more accurate with its first several shots than the Pulsar LSW. It has a very low initial recoil of 1.5, so it's not going to kick back at all. It's going to basically allow you to keep on target very easily. Ultimately, the gun's going to be a little bit tricky to use in close quarters, but at medium range and long range, it's going to be an absolute showstopper. Considering that I really didn't care for the MSWR or T9 Carve at medium or long range, this is the only gun that the TR have if you want something that can perform in all ranges. Finally, we have the new Conglomerate's LMG. I've picked the GD-22S. This might come as a surprise to some of you. I know the Nc6 Gasa is pretty highly rated among the new Conglomerate, as well as the EM6. And before I break down the stats of the GD-22S, let me just say that the Nc6 Gasa is pretty much a sniper rifle at long range. There is no other LMG out there that can compete with that gun in long-range firefights. It's absolutely brutal. Extreme high damage, extreme accuracy if you shoot it in 1 to 2 round bursts. However, when I played the heavy assault class, I'm not looking for a gun that kicks ass at long range and isn't very good at anything else. I need something that's versatile, something that can kill people long range, medium range, and close quarters if need be. That's where the GD-22S comes in. This gun does 167 maximum and 143 minimum. It also has the exact same rate of fire as the TMG-50. So basically it has the same damage and rate of fire as the TMG-50. However, its recoil is significantly less. With a 0.4 pull up and to the right, this gun has manageable recoil. Weapons that have equal pull left and right are easier to, I guess, keep on target, but they have an element of uncontrollable recoil. This gun has much more controllable recoil once you get used to it, and it can allow you to keep pinpoint accuracy at long range. It's also worth mentioning that it only has a 50 round magazine compared to the TMG-50's 75 and the Pulsar LSW 75, but it has a pretty fast reload speed of 3.4 seconds for the short reload and 4.3 seconds for the long reload. It has an extremely low first shot recoil multiplier of 1.5, and combined with its relatively low regular recoil, this makes this gun kick back almost unnoticeably, and it's very, very easy to keep on target at longer ranges. Now, at long range, this gun isn't going to really be able to compete with something like the Gasa, but at medium ranges, this gun is pretty much unrivaled in the LMG department. Its accuracy, rate of fire, and damage per shot is just going to make this gun hit the sweet spot for those medium range encounters. Close quarters can get a little bit dicey here and there. It's definitely not a bad gun for close quarters, you just really have to be on the ball. So how do all 3 of these weapons stack up against each other? My favorite gun picks for each faction. I'm going to have to put the Pulsar LSW at the top of the heap. That thing is just extremely easy to use. It's very good for close quarters. It can handle itself at medium range, no problem. And even at long range, you can definitely pick off some kills with some well-placed headshots. However, I don't think it's more effective than the GD-22S at long range. But it is without a doubt a more effective weapon for close quarters, hands down. It reloads faster than the other 2 weapons. It's got a nice hefty 75 round magazine. It fires faster, it does more damage per second than the other weapons, and has more accurate hip fire. The GD-22S, however, comes in as my second favorite because that thing can just absolutely dish out the damage at medium range. For those medium range encounters, there really isn't any other gun out there that I prefer over this one. It's just accurate, easy to use. The only thing that's really holding the weapon back is its slower rate of fire, which makes it a little bit trickier to use in close quarters. The TMG-50 for the TR is very similar to the GD-22S, except that it has a larger magazine, higher recoil, and a longer reload time. Sadly, the slightly higher recoil makes me like it a little bit less than the GD-22S, but it does have 25 more rounds in a magazine, so you can potentially drop more targets at range, as you saw from the clip where I dropped 5 guys in about 10 seconds. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, there are guns that perform better than the 3 I've picked here in specific categories. I think these 3 overall perform the best in all 3 categories: short range, medium range, and long range. And that's why I picked them, and that's why they're my favorite LMGs for each faction. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.